Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today I'm going to be walking you how to make some new wave trap beats. But before we get into the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. All the support has been going crazy recently. We're about to hit 1.7k subs and I'm actually aiming for 2k, so really appreciate all the support. You guys have been going crazy, and to show some love back, in the description I've got a bunch of free drum kits on me. Take them, use them however you please. And to get the latest one, go ahead on my Instagram, grab it for free. I'm using it in all my videos as of recently, and it's in my Instagram, so you know, in the description. So with all that being said, let's just jump straight into the video. The first thing to know about new wave trap beats, you want to have a nice little high BPM, so we're doing this at 158 BPM, but this can really range up to like the 180 BPMs really, even pushing up to 200 if you're going crazy with Detroit kind of stuff. But then we're doing this in the scale of E minor, and the first VST we've got is an instance of Analog Lab 5 using a key preset called the Flares. It's a nice little synth key, and as you can see from the pattern, it is pretty straightforward. So to break it down, starting off with these root notes, we stick in an E, taking it down to a C and up into a D, copying and pasting it a whole octave. Then I add these nice little notes on top over here, as you can see, and these notes essentially make like a triad chord, but all I do is just remove the middle note, as you can see here, here, and here. So just remove these notes, and that's how I got that nice little like extra bit of thickness to the whole thing. Then I got this note and this note here to act as a nice little transitional note, and then looking all the way at the top over here, we have got ourselves a nice little chord progression that repeats itself every 2 bar. It's actually a nice little triad, as you can see over here, but then I take this note down 1 semitone, and over here I replay that top note again, and then get this cool little bounce going with this G note and the F sharp. And one thing to note about these notes over here that I've highlighted, in a scale, 1 semitone apart notes give you a very dark kind of vibe, and that's exactly what we want for these new trap beats. So use these notes where you can, make it sound good, and you're on your way already to getting a new wave trap beat. But then I clicked Alt S to get myself a strummerizer, and all it does is it strums the notes, giving it more of a human touch. And then by clicking Alt R, I randomized my velocities down here, as you can see, playing with the velocity knob, and that just adds a bit more of a human touch again. So without further ado, this is what the main melody sounds like. As for the effects, first thing I did was get myself an EQ coming off all my lows, and the instance of Soothe 2 just to compress those really harsh frequencies on the high end, and then some Valhalla Vintage Rip to wrap it up, give it a bit of ambience, and as you can see from the preset I've made, it's a fair bit of reverb. Oh, of course, the last thing I did was add a instance of stereo separation, around 20%, just widen it a bit in your headphones. And now for the next element within the sample is actually a reverse chop top thing of the main melody, but I'll break this down for you. First thing I did was go into my Analog Lab 5, right click it within the playlist and click Quick Render as audio clip, and the next thing I did was drag it of course into the playlist. Now I double click it, go into my range, and I pitched it down 12 semitones, as you can see, so I'll have it on 12, pull that all the way down to take it down the whole octave. Then going on to the time, I actually time stretched it so it's on double time, as you can see now, and how all these notes are now perfectly fine. Then I click reverse, and then this is the thing, right? Once you reverse it, you want to chop it up into 4 quarters. So we got 1, 2, and 3, so we got 4 quarters over here. And what actually happens is, because it's been reversed, the whole melody reverses. So the first chord playing over here is this chord over here, second chord over here is the third chord over here, and then vice versa for the rest of it, if you get what I mean. So then all I did was grab this chord, place it here, grab this chord, place it here, grab this chord, place it here, and same with the final one. And once I did that, I highlighted all of them by clicking Control and left click Control B, and zooming out, dragging these back in. You can see is the exact same as the pattern above, and that's how I got the nice little background element. And without further ado, this is what the background element to a new wave trap beat sounds like. And there we have it, adding a nice little bit of texture to the whole thing, and as you can hear, it's a nice like synthetic kind of like glitchy sound, really part of this whole new wave sound, and I really like it. But breaking down the effects, first thing I did was get an EQ cutting off all my lows, some Soothe 2 yet again, just to get all of these harsh frequencies out of the way. An instance of Fruity Chorus at 50% though, just because I like the voices being separated, but a bit too much was a bit too much in my opinion. Then an instance of Free Phaser, just adding a bit of movement to the background. And last but not least, some Valhalla Vintage Verb, as you can see from the preset, added a fair amount, just really want to widen the sound and add some ambience. And then to further widen the sound, I stereo separated it around 40%, again, making it much wider in your headphones and your monitors. And then next up, we got ourselves an instance of Analog Lab 5 again, but I am using the bass preset known as Source. Nice little preset from the Max Shooter Artillery Bank. But anyways, this is what the pattern looks like, following the root notes of my original melody, as you can see here, and it's pretty much that simple, just filling out all the low end, and this is what the bass sounds like. And for the next sound, I got myself an instance of Expand 2 using the solo violin preset from the strings bank. And then looking at the pattern, it's a very nice melody. If anything, it's a counter melody. And all I did was start off in this nice little B, and I used the chord progression to kind of follow with these notes, because as you can see from that B, this little F sharp and this A. So played that, drop it down here into an A. Then I rinse repeat the same pattern, but I changed the A into a C. Then I rinse repeat the same pattern over here and here. And then for the last bit of variation, go into a G, F sharp, all the way down to an E, kind of like cascading downwards to add a bit of emotion. And yet again, I'm using all these notes which are semitone apart, further adding that kind of like dark essence to the whole melody. And as you can see, by clicking Alt R, I did randomize my velocities here as well, adding another human touch. So this is what the strings sound like. As for the effects, pretty simple, got an EQ coming off of my lows, an instance of Soothe 2 just to compress them harsh frequencies, and then to Valhalla Vintage Drift to add a bit of ambience. And last but not least, we have got ourselves an instance of Contact 7 using the band called Choir Essential with the preset, the Choir Ensemble Performance. And to break down the pattern, it's pretty straightforward. All I do, follow the root notes down here, and then have those other notes playing alongside them that was part of that like lower octave key, and have a consistent E playing throughout the whole middle section. And at the very top, we have that nice little B note, just like the main sample at the very beginning. And then lastly, clicking Alt R, I randomized my velocities yet again, just to add that human touch. As for the effects, all I did was get an EQ coming off on my lows, some Soothe 2 yet again, and of course some Valhalla Vintage Verb. And then I stereo separated it around 70%, really widening with the headphones, just to add a little grand element, another background element, and it really just elevates the whole melody. And without further ado, this is what the sample for a new wave trap beat sounds like. There we have it, guys. Super anthemic, very grand, in that new wave trap kind of sound. But now it's time to break into the drums, which of course from my kit. First of all, we're going to break down a nice little clap pattern, pretty simple and straightforward. I've just got myself a nice little Sony digital snare from the kit, playing this very generic pattern that we all know and love. And then moving into the hi-hats, we have got ourselves the brazy hat. Nice little pattern, repeats itself every 4 bar. But to break it down, let's just zoom in over here. And looking at it all, I essentially go into my magnet tool, start off on a quarter step, and then I got myself a nice little half step roll going here. Then as we can see over here, take a note down to a G and then to that F sharp, adding a nice little quarter roll. And this is something I really enjoy doing in my other videos as well. Getting rolls like this where it's like a note and then a roll down at a lower pitch. Sounds amazing. Then I got these 2 notes for a bit of extra bounce. Add another half step roll at the beginning of this 2 bar. Get a normal step roll over here. But then for this final roll, as you can see, it's a bit off grid. And the reason it is because if we go back into the magnet tool, go into a 3rd beat, I've got myself a nice little 3rd beat roll going over here. And then all I did was copy and paste this whole part one more time to make a full 8. And without further ado, this is what the hi-hat and the snare sound like. And now for the 808s. As you can see from the pattern, it's a very nice little bounce. All I do is get this nice little pattern going here, first of all, in that E note. Then copy and paste it again. Then I use this pattern and copy and paste it down here, and then copy and paste it one more time onto the D, just following the root note of that original melody. But for a bit of variation, I got myself this really cool roll going on over here. Take this note up a whole octave and then add this little kind of roll at the end. As for the kick pattern, it is pretty simple, just following the same notes as my 808 but all on the root note of C. And I want to point out something really important. I do this for both my 808 and my kicks, but what I do is I click Control A, highlighting all my notes, then I grab my mouse and push that scroller wheel down, as you can see, and then scroll all the way to the very top. The reason I do this is because it maxes out your velocities, which means it makes your 808 and your kicks much harder and punchier within the mix. Sounds more appealing to artists, and they'll be more likely to hop onto your beats. So recommend you take that bit of sauce down. But with all that being said, this is what the 808 and the kicks sound like. And now for the final 2 patterns. First of all, starting off with this nice little DY snare. Got a pattern I repeat every 4 bar, but it's pretty much the same little pattern going on here with all these green notes. However, I added this little extra red note here and here for a bit of extra bounce. And then last but not least, I grabbed myself an open hat from the kit, playing it every 2 bar, and it pretty much hits where the first 2 808s hit, further adding a bit of extra punch, which is very much needed for these new wave ATL, which is very much needed for these new wave trap beats. But now, with all that being said, this is what the full beat sounds like. And there we have it. But now let's just walk into the beat structure. First of all, we're going to go for our intro, which is a nice little 8-bar with that main melody, that nice kind of little background element that I made with the reverse sample, the bass line, and then a clap that comes halfway through alongside that nice little producer tag. But then coming into the chorus, we first of all just have the main sample playing alone in the first 8-bar alongside all of these drums and that open hat. But then to elevate the chorus a bit more, in the second 8-bar, and I'll introduce that choir alongside those 2 snares just to get a bit more bounce going. And then coming into the verse section, we have 3 8-bars in total, but the very first one has this nice little sample playing again, the main one. Then I've got myself the snare with the hats, 808 coming in, and that snare at the very bottom. But then for the second 8-bar, all I do is now reintroduce that cool background element. But then for the second 8-bar, I now introduce that cool background element I had before going on, just for a bit of variety. And I now introduce that kick for the 808 to add a lot more punchiness to it. And then for the final 8-bar, it's known as a pre-hook or the pre-chorus. All I do, strip away all the drums, introduce that snare and kick halfway through, but I now introduce that violin, I reintroduce the bass, and it really just builds this kind of like grand build up into the chorus again. But then all I do is copy and paste the chorus again for the same effect, but I add the violin here and here just because I feel like it adds a bit more grandness to it. We've now moved on later into the beat, so I want to add a bit more of a variation. And of course, I've copy and pasted the same verse again. And then looking at the outro, all I do is play the same 8-bar as I did for the intro, but without that little snare. And that's pretty much it, guys. You've made it to the end of the video. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you want to see next. Appreciate all the support. Let's hit that 2K. And thank you very much for watching. Catch you next week. Peace.